Welcome to Two Guys.
A girl.
And an MBA.
I think we can start with the news. A nail salon employee pleads guilty after holding 13 remote IT jobs worked by developers in China. So what happened? Just a man from Maryland and worked with foreign nations in China to get remote work, IT jobs within 13 different US companies between 2021 and 2024. So it means IT companies in the US think they work remotely with some person in the US, but instead all work was done by Chinese. And who knows what data can be go through these channels. So on the one hand, it's funny story, just man pretend and just his remote work to other people. All right, but because it's US and China and it's IT world, and when you work with IT companies, some database open to you, and it means you can go through all firewalls and everything and get some private data, and depends on what IT company did. Maybe I should read maybe some government order was there and projects. And that means it's a risky for company, and they should think twice when hire someone remotely. So what do you think? What are the consequences for US, for China, for everyone, for our world, for remote work?
Well, the article was 13 jobs, but they were performed by North Korean operatives, and they targeted specific IT companies in order to get data, in order to get IP. So this guy is going to face multiple years in prison because this is probably a national security issue more so than remote work. But it highlights the danger of remote work without vetting it. And I think the article actually gets to the point where if it's highly sensitive information for any company, should there be laws around allowing for remote work? Because this is exactly what happens. So they were based in China, but there were North Korean operatives. Kim Jong-un is in the title. So that's the problem.
We studied in the MBA course cybersecurity at risk and IP, intellectual property risk. This is kind of combines those two. It reminds me of a different story. I know we're talking about remote work, but there's also talk of like certain people working multiple jobs and actually doing the jobs. Not like in this case, this is just a fraud. Okay, so this is, put that to rest. This guy was like renting out or leasing out his identity to foreign operatives, and so forth. So that's clearly fraud. But in other cases, you have people working at like Google and Amazon, these big tech companies that are actually doing 2 or 3 jobs, and like they're so capable with their skills and coding and whatnot and the remote work that they're actually taking like 2 or 3 big salaries from each job and managing it and handling it. So it kind of blurs into that conversation too a little. It's like, where's the accountability, and how is management in the 21st century going to work if you don't have hands-on? You don't have boots on the ground, eyes over shoulders, how are you going to manage people if they're all around the world? And furthermore, how are you going to enforce penalties? Like this guy happened to be in the US because he's a dummy. What if he'd been in, Zimbabwe, or no offense, but you know what I mean? Like, what if he had been in some, North Korea, right? What if he'd been somewhere else? How would he be prosecuted? How would we know about these things and so forth?
Yeah, remember we always studied the GDPR, the General Data Protection out of Europe, which is probably the most robust data privacy law, where they'll penalize your company X amount of percent globally if you're found to use data. So they have the strongest data protection laws. And when you're talking about, I don't think Zimbabwe has come to the table with the Zimbabwe version yet. So America I don't even think have data privacy laws. I don't think at the level that the Europeans do.
I think we should check, but how they sold to Twitter and other big IT companies with all database and just going through one hand to another hand. And I think if we register on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, you already buy my private data and everything what you post there. So if you post, you're already in the scheme. My opinion should be more strict cybersecurity laws and rules and monitoring and everything, because especially for this case, it was not only North Korea, just a illegal nuclear weapons program. So it's like, wow, it's not just three salaries, it's just nuclear power, and it's a consequences for all of us, for all the world. I work remotely. I can say I'm in Ukraine, and it's IT after the COVID. Most of offices just okay. Nobody wants to back to the offices. It's cheaper to keep you remotely. And like you asked, what we did with our AMBA program in Boston University, we also had the opportunity to study remotely. So remotely is good. But how we can monitor it? Maybe it's like IP address from your work computer, and to be sure that you are here, what you do, you've done some identifications and everything. So it can be handled by digital tools, but should be careful. What is your outsource and people who work on your super private projects?
I think, the punishments, have to be pretty severe too, like for what you're talking about. I guess here on a similar thread here, Ireland fines TikTok 530 million euros for sending EU user data to China. We were talking about GDPR a second ago. This is the Ireland, the IDC or DPC, the Irish Data Protection Commission. So it's similar to the GDPR. And basically they're saying that, TikTok was sending data back to China, so they're fining them €500 million. I dare say TikTok won't make that mistake again, but maybe they will. I don't know. Maybe the data was worth it. I think you're seeing this trend. Countries are not acting directly in these cases. They're acting through proxies. It seems like, whether it's through TikTok, whether it's through this contractor guy. They're trying to find a way to do the cyber warfare. We can't have a hot war in the 21st century, but we do in some places. You know that. But like China and the U.S. can't have a hot war, or the whole world will blow up in nuclear smoke, right? So the way they seem to be waging it is like behind the scenes in these like proxy, nefarious kind of ways. It's just interesting when it leaks out what's really happening behind the scenes.
Yeah, and I think that's the whole part of the Trump argument around IP, data, and China, right? Because you pointed to two examples. One is this worker who's working with North Korean operatives out of China, and you also point to TikTok, which is another Chinese-owned company that I don't know where that is with them being sold in the United States, but those are the two main Trump China issues: the privacy and IP theft. And here's a guy just cutting hair. I think he worked as a hairdresser. I don't even know. 13, he made
nail salon.
Okay, well, of course, nail salon. Well, whatever. But he made $1 million, right? Like doing this. But yeah, if a nail salon guy could do it, can you imagine who else is doing it right now?
Please consider subscribing below.
Thank you for being with us. Please leave your comments, feedback, what you think about us, and see you in the next podcast. Bye.